Welcome to the Vitamin P Coaching Podcast. Happy Friday, happy weekend, and I hope you've had a good week. I wish you a great weekend ahead. A busy-ish week this week, but some interesting things going on. And I joined my first kind of peer group conversation on Wednesday night with a group of men from around the world, really, who support, coach, mentor men. And being part of that peer group and being part of the conversation was one of the big takeaways for me this week because I got to realize that that depth of conversation that we had, that depth of work, they're happening, they're taking place, they're going on, and that was really reaffirming for me and something that I'm really excited about. So, yeah, I'm excited to see where that might go and some partnerships that might happen because of that space and because of those conversations. So, stay tuned. And if you'd like to know more about some of the work that I might be doing, you can sign up for my email list. I'm going to start trying to just get diligent about doing that, but I'm also hoping to, um, yeah, just make that more of a practice. And I apologize that it hasn't been. So a couple of insights, a couple of lessons, a couple of kind of cool things that I guess I learned and discovering this week. One is a quote that was said by one of the guys on the call, Toby, and he said that your bravery, he was saying this about himself, your bravery has always been rewarded. And when I think about any kind of journey that I've been on, probably that you've been on, when we back ourselves, when we use bravery or choose courage, things open up to us, relationships open up to us, opportunities open up to us. Everything changes when we back ourselves and when we commit and choose courage. And so the invitation is, where are you holding back when what might be needed is to demonstrate bravery? You probably know what that is. And if you don't, uh, get playful a little bit longer and you might actually discover what it is. I probably know some of what bravery is needed, and it's just been interesting to be able to pay attention to it. I mean, let's just go there, right? Because that's what the intent of this podcast is. I did work roughly 2 weeks ago in a conversation with about 20 leaders, and I was the most myself I've been in those kind of conversations. I've come from a version of me that tried to impress, that tried to know everything, to have the right answers, to present like a polished slide deck, one that I knew inside out, and all this kind of stuff. And it's horseshit. Instead, what I did is just show up with heart, show up honestly. I cried. I made other people cry, not by punching them, just by storytelling and being honest. And I mean, I laughed, we joked, I shared pictures of Jack. I mean, we did some profound human to human, heart to heart conversations, and it was beautiful. And then I did a workshop a couple of weeks ago after that, and I wore a suit and tie. And it was the sense I got afterwards. It was work that I was offered. It was a really good piece of work that I did. But the suit and tie definitely changes the dynamic between me and others. And I deliberately stopped wearing a tie one day. I remember where it was in Canary Wharf. And I'm like, I'm never wearing a tie again. Unless it's a wedding. And it just becomes this barrier to connection. It becomes this front, this identity that I just don't really want to be or do anymore. And so the bravery is I had that contrast of those two things. Here's your heart work. Here's your um, doing it for other people or trying to be impressive or whatever it is. How might you back yourself to do the hard work a little bit more often? Where is it? How do you do it more often? And so that's the invitation I would offer you is like your bravery is always rewarded. How might you, um, yeah, act on it? Another is, and this is related, I've noticed a confusion in me, and I've spoken to a few people that have noticed a confusion in them around what to do next. So there's this kind of yearning or desire to do more and give more to other people and your work. And one of the things that I wondered with my confusion is Am I trying to do this for me? Am I trying to do it to just to make money? Am I trying to impress other people or keep other people happy? And when that's true, that it's for other people or money or that kind of thing, I think it changes how we experience those things. So, for example, I've met some people that have been extremely successful and don't need to work, but their mission or their purpose or their desire to do work is just stronger than the desire to make money. So the money is important, but it's not going to sustain you forever. Because when you reach a point where you don't need it, what are you doing it for? What's the purpose of the purpose work? Like, what's the purpose of it? What's the point? And if that's not clear and you're doing it for everyone else, it's really hard to keep everyone else happy. Instead, again, it goes back to the bravery. This is like an invitation to like internalize bravery towards following your instincts, following the things that you're drawn towards. And here I'm going to link it to something else, which is the difference between jealousy, envy, and longing. And this came up in therapy recently where I met, sorry, I saw somebody who I know who's doing some really cool stuff, and I immediately contracted how I felt about me and my business and what's possible for me. And I brought it to therapy. And my therapist is a new person I've been working with, and she hasn't sacked me yet, which is a bonus. And she said, "Oh, it's interesting. Is it envy?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. Tell me what the difference between envy or jealousy is." And she said something like envy is wanting what other people have, jealousy is wanting the other person to suffer because of what they have. Like, oh, it's not, I don't know which it is. And then we discovered a little bit longer that it was actually longing. So what I saw was something that I longed for. And so envy is, yeah, I want that. I long for that. And that was the invitation. That's the work. It's not to judge that contraction or those emotions or the kind of sensations of as bad. I mean, I wrote in my journal like that was an awful morning for me. I had a really difficult morning. I really struggled, and yet went out for lunch with Katie and Jack, had a lovely time, and came back. And I wrote at the end of the page in that day, I feel much better than I did this morning. I mean, emotion is energy in motion. We must move, we must change, we must go somewhere different, we must do different things, be with different people, not always on our own. And when we're running our own business, who do you have to co-regulate with, right? Who do you have to share emotions with and kind of be um, settled with? Sometimes that's you on your own, but doing it with other people is always helpful. So, what are you longing for? What are you envious of? What are you jealous of? I mean, all of those things are okay. I judged myself for it being slightly jealous, not wanting harm, but definitely wanting other people to see me as impressive or more impressive than this person. And I'm like, hey, it's so fucking human, and that's okay. And so that's the difference between jealousy, envy, and longing, and just something interesting. I think I said earlier on as well, the work at depth is happening, the authentic conversations are happening, and if you don't see them, how might you create them or get involved in them? And that's something that I'm paying attention to for myself. Um, that sense of connection, again, from working on my own, is definitely something that I'm missing, definitely something that I'm longing for. And being part of work or partnering with people that do work, that we can do it together, is definitely something that I'm paying attention to and is on my horizon. And it links to this next piece, which is, am I and are you willing to do work that earns less? It may be less impressive to other people, but feels better and actually the work that you want to do. And again, it comes back to the bravery to choose or to find the and between those two. I mean, these are all hopefully this is getting so personal. Like this is so the stuff that I'm paying attention to at the moment. There's work that pays really well, and I'm so happy to get it. And I do really good work in those moments. And there's work that I just want to like walk people in the forest and plant trees and dig holes in the like whatever it is. What are we called to do? Are we brave enough to do it? was on a call looking at a almost like a assessment to set up team coaching with some really cool people recently, and the conversation triggered a thought in me and reinforced that. I mean, we used to double down on performance as being the outcome of coaching, and that's true. But as the world gets more complex, as the scale and complexity of problems become greater than one person's capacity to hold and solve and think through and act on, we need a new way. And I mean, the underlying shift is a few things, but the move from like command and control leadership to almost a distributed autonomy based on trust and connection and relationship feels like part of it. The other part of it is that kind of structure, container around what you do, the timeline that you do it in, all this kind of stuff is going to be absolutely flipped on its head with digital, with AI, with computing, with all the access to technology that we have and that will emerge. And so it's demanding a different form of leadership. And it's what I really liked about this, and I'll tag John, and I just can't remember the other person's name that was kind of having the conversation, but it, what I really liked about the assessment, it's called Mirror Mirror, is that it helps you get really accurate on current state so that you can align on that. Because if there's no alignment, it's like muddy water and trying to move in a swamp. It's just not helpful. Instead, it's get really clear on where you are now together, get a really clear view on that together so that there's alignment. And then you can think about what the next step is, not what the 10-year strategy. 10-year strategies are fucked. It's not the thing. Neither is day to day, right? But there's some mix of both. And I think we're being called not to manage today, but to get really clear on today and then act on next. And that's different. And so that's the invitation. Another kind of thing that's coming up. I mean, I have the book. It's downstairs. I bought so through coaching conversations, some of what's coming up for people is shadow work. So that kind of part of ourselves and others that we don't want to own up to recognize, to accept. It's in the shadow. It's sometimes hidden from our view, but it still plays out. I mean, me talking about that kind of jealousy, envy, or longing distinction, I mean, that's shadow stuff. That jealousy, like, that's a thing for me and you and us and humans. Like, it's not just the unsuccessful, it's the successful people that have this too. And the more we honor that reality, that we contain bright and dark, what we're aware of and what we're not, what's good about us and what is like less good, maybe helpful and unhelpful. Um, this is what we need to start the conversations about. It's not to dump or share the wounds as they are open, but more to have the conversation about the realities of what it means to be human, where we will experience jealousy, envy, longing, despair, sadness, depression, anger, frustration, anxiety, all those things. But instead, what we're shown and told, and everybody is just living up to is, oh, I'm happy all the time. I'm excited. I'm honored. I'm so proud. I'm content. I'm peaceful. Like, nah, lots of people don't experience that stuff. You can experience it a lot, and you can create those things. But the reality is, the human experience is the combination of all of it. And I mean, that's what I think the purpose of life is to experience all of it. Some days it's hard. I think I was saying to you about yesterday or the day before, it was hard. Um, that's the reality of being human. So shadow work isn't cool to talk about, but probably the stuff we need to talk about a little bit more. Another thing is, and I love this. So I talked about going to therapy. I talk often about my mentors, and one of them I share that I think this person is one down from Buddha. I haven't told this person that, but I might. And in a conversation recently, we were talking about like coaching. And one of the things that comes up in coaching conversations often is I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, or I'm torn between these two things, or it's always two. And if you think about it, we have two hands. And so what my mentor told me is wondering if we are at the mercy of our biology, which is true, right? With two hands. So we're weighing up things like this. And he said, what if we had 13 limbs or eight like an octopus? Would we actually then get constrained or torn between eight or 13 things? Because our biology would be different. And I'm like, it's such a helpful question. So instead of having one idea, have 13 and then see from there. I mean, I listened to a podcast recently, I think it was Dan Priestley, and he talked about in business, typically you'll come up with an idea or two or three and you'll latch onto one. Whereas if you have 13 or 10 as an example, you're more likely to be able to get them validated by other people or not, and you'll be less likely to just gravitate towards one. Like that's helpful. So how might you uh, try on the biology of an animal like an octopus so that you're less torn between one or two things? And again, in times of stress, your nervous system will see black or white, all or nothing, one or zero as the only choices because it's quicker. Again, think about evolution. One or zero is how we adapt and are evolved. Um, but it's unhelpful again for the complexity and the chaos and the sophistication of the world that we operate in. So, yeah, how might you embody the octopus? That's it. Uh, I wish you much love. I'm spending time with Jack and Elvis today. Katie's at work um, for the last 2 days doing a kit or a keep in touch day. So, yeah, the boys are back in town. I wish you much love. I hope that you have a great weekend, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you soon.